In this episode of our photography review show, we're gonna review over 61 photos from 25 photographers. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. I hope you had a great week and that you're ready for another set of photography reviews. For those who don't know me, my name is Jakub and I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. Now for the past 2 or 3 years I've been reviewing photos from my friends and colleagues, and that's something what we decided to offer to our photography community here at Clever Photographer. Now it's been very successful, and for the last 6 months we've been receiving many photos from many photographers from all over the world. Now because it's been so successful, we were pushed to limit the entries to 1 or 2 photos per week per photographer, and for the same reason we also take the show and divide it between 2 or 3 different parts. We usually look at the landscape photography in the first part, then the mixed team photography in the second part, and we look at the rest of the photography styles in the third and final part. Now we're gonna do the same this week, but before we're gonna do that, I wanted to remind you about our Facebook photography group. It's called Clever Photographer, and it's a great space if you wanna come and join us, talk about photography. We answer your photos there, we run regular photography competitions, and we also review your photos throughout the week. So if you wanna join us, it's for free. All you need to do, head to Facebook, search for Clever Photographer Academy, and join us today. But now, because we have many photographers to look at, without any further ado, let's jump straight into it. Hello there and welcome to the third and final part of our photography review show this week, where we're going to be looking at the rest of the photography styles. We have 1 portrait photographer and 5 wildlife photographers to look at. So we are almost ready, but just one last request to make sure that you like this video, that you comment under it, and also make sure that you subscribe to our channel so we can keep creating content like this. So 1 portrait photographer, but absolutely stunning captures from John here. John, 2 portraits, very lovely, kind of heavy, dark, contrasty, black and white photo with lots of texture on it, so beautiful capture. And this one stunning as well, a beautiful mixture of colors, textures, level of detail, just very pretty. So let's jump to it, let's have a look at what we have. Looking at the camera details, both of them same, different camera. So let's start with this one, Nikon D3300, 105mm lens. That's the gear you were using. And then when it comes to the settings, ISO 100, 105mm f4, 1/200th of a second. So starting with the setting, I think everything is spot on, including the ISO, making sure that everything is nice, clean and crisp is a great choice. Looking at the image like this, the level of the detail is brilliant. The detail starting from an eye, which is always a great thing. The light also works very well, straight on the face and then also around the hoodie, I think works really nice. The level of detail, including these fabric fibers, it's beautiful. The depth of field with the blur at the back is nice as well. And really, to be honest, the ginger together with this kind of cream and then the kind of green of color is just beautiful and excellent choice, John. So all in all, technically I think this is really well handled. I'm thrilled by the level of details, by the light, and also by the elements all put together. Now talking about this one, different camera, this time Nikon D810, 85mm lens, ISO 100, f2.8, 1/400th of a second on this one. So again, keeping it nice and clean with the ISO 100, f2.8, giving us really kind of much bigger depth of field, starting already probably somewhere from here, really bringing the focus directly onto the face. I'm quite impressed by the level of the details you also got on the hand, so I'm almost wondering if it was a stuck capture. If not, then it's very well handled. 1/400th of a second is quite fast, but if the person was sitting still, probably resting the face a little bit on the hands, I think it probably worked very well. All in all together, put it very well. Again, a lovely level of detail, maybe not as much as here. This one seems just a little bit more cloudier, a little bit more, softer, but both of them excellent pictures. Now, when it comes to composition, I think this one works very well for me, except the fact that I think it would be great if you would have the top of the head, even just a little bit of a space, showing that you obviously keeping an eye on your edges would have helped for me personally. But then I know that you're getting to the point when the picture is really long, you're starting all the way from the hands all the way up to here. But I think as a visually, I would like to have there a little bit of the space. Now, the rest of the crop actually on this picture I think works very well because of the shape of the head and because of the hands. It's creating a really nice kind of portrait, almost like a cinematic portrait crop, and it's excellent together. So as a composition wise and framing, I think it works very well. The light coming from this side is great, creating beautiful contrast. I like that you're having still details coming out here. I think that's really important. Although maybe at this part it goes all the way to the black, but this is also super well done, helping that kind of grunge, dark, contrasty look all together. Now looking at this one, this one is the one which I absolutely love what I see, but I would have liked a little bit more space on the side, I think, simply because the head isn't as long. There isn't really much happening here at the bottom. I think if there would be more of the hoodie, it would help. So I think if there would have been a little bit more space on the side, I think it would have helped little bit more. Other than that, excellent balance of the colors and the contrast, I told you already. Maybe a little bit of a shame that it's taking a little bit of her face here, simply because you haven't done it on the other side. So obviously just a little bit, just either you kind of do it from both sides or one side. It's just something what maybe I would look at, but other than that, again, very well done. Now talking about the post-processing, this one, very powerful, but very natural. The kid or girl is still, it's the nice edit, which feel natural, feel realistic, but almost kind of minimal in the colors. I think altogether it works very, very well. It's all nice, sharp, nice balance, and just nicely done. Talking about this one, completely different edit, obviously turning it into black and white, playing around with maybe a little bit of a grain, which always works with this type of image. I would keep an eye on the black, don't burn it completely, because then, you know, if you would want to go into the print, it would maybe, I'm not sure how the result would look. I would just always like to see a little bit, but then again, that could be just the screen, so I wouldn't worry too much. All in all, John, not much I can tell you for both of them because they're excellent, great result, and well done. So again, if you have more images, make sure you send them to us. We would love to see them and talk more about them in the future. And now it's time to jump into 5 of our landscape photographers, and we're gonna start with Darrell. Darrell, we have this bird right here, and we have a kangaroos right here. So let's do it. Let's have a look at the camera details. Let's see between the two. Both of them same camera, same lenses. So Nikon D7500. The lens is 55mm to 300mm. And then we have the camera setting for this one. ISO 360, f4.8. 1/2000 of the second, 140mm. So I think this is the one where I would have, or you definitely had a space to go slower on the shutter speed and lower on the ISO. So that way you really remove any noise necessarily, and you still get everything nice and sharp. What I like is the blur. I think that works very well, and actually quite nice and pleasing light. Now it's a little bit harsh, but obviously in this case, I think it works quite well. It's this part of the animal which is mostly in focus and sharp. The rest of it is a little bit blurry, but I think it works. I think it works, and it's quite cool. Now, talking about this one, the settings were ISO 100, 300mm, f14, 1/200 of a second. So you kept the ISO nice and low here, which is a good thing. 300mm, so you were a bit far. F14. Even with f14, you still get the blur at the back, which I think helps in overall. And 1/200 of a second probably wasn't fast enough because they are a touch soft, just a touch, but there is not the same crispiness as on the animal here. But obviously with that kind of length and everything considering, it's still very nice. Now, talking about composition, since we all this picture already, I think this is a prime example of hundreds of pictures I got over the last 6 months, where obviously lots of these animals being captured in their natural habitat, have a very similar colors to their surroundings. And again, here it's very kind of visible. Look at the color and look at the color of the gray between the stones and the gray on the trees behind. So the contrast of the color is really removed. And this is where it really comes handy that your background is blurry, because it creates the separation. If the background wouldn't be blurry, the animals would really disappear in them and it wouldn't be that great. So all in all, like this, I think it worked quite for your favor and it's quite nice. Now I would crop it a little bit tighter, I think, removing some of the space from the top, maybe placing the head of this one on the golden triangle here, and just cropping it so I get pretty much the same amount of space from each side of the animal is always a good idea. So you get something like this, and I think it's a little bit more balanced, a little bit more powerful. Other than that, the subject is clear, storytelling is clear. This almost looks like he's looking at you and this one's looking at him. Nicely done together, lovely capture. Moving on this one, obviously as an artistic decision, leaving more space behind him, it's quite nice. However, I think if you would have done it the other way around, it would also be just as powerful. The fact that pretty much only this part of his face is in focus and with great level of detail actually works very, very well, and it's very nice. Again, I love the separation with the blur, and I love the contrast here where you have this really dark color compared to this creamy. I think together it works well. Now, post-processing on this one, nothing to add. I think it's great. Natural color, white balance, shadows, contrast, highlights, just very well. Here, I think it needs a little bit of local adjustment, simply because when you look at it like this, the light is almost flat and even all across. So there is no shadows, there is no darker areas, or very minimum of it. So always starting by adding a little vignette, creating at least a little bit of focus point in the center of the image, and then maybe using a little bit of brush and just doing a little bit of dodge and burn and see if I can kind of help to some parts of it. I always overdo it a little bit and then just kind of use the slider to make it a little bit more natural. And then you can do the same with adding exposure and make some parts of them a bit more visible and do something like this. Then you can go ahead and add a little bit of contrast in the overall image and really play around with it and see what kind of works best for you from there. Either way, Darrell, thank you very much. A pleasure to review your photos. This one is super cool, something a bit different than I usually see. Take care, and if you have more pictures, make sure you send them to us in the near future. Moving on to wildlife photographer number 2, we have a Laurie Griezmann, and this week I'm really excited for Laurie's capture because this is like a super cool capture of this goat, and I even got the story from Laurie about this picture where basically this goat, I hope it's a goat, I hope I'm saying it right, was looking down the hill, looking at the fire. So it was very interesting. Also, the goat looks like he's definitely ready for some haircut. I know that these animals probably don't really belong to anybody, so they just kind of rub themselves against things and lose the hair that way. But either way, very powerful image. But let's start with this one. Let's start with the camera details. So Canon 5D Mark II on both. Yep. And then this one was 24 on 105, ISO 100, spot on there, f4, creating nice blur, almost bouquet-like background, which I think is very cool. 125th of a second. The only thing is, I'm wondering why your colors are so off. Like it's really, the white balance altogether is a bit strange. You get a lot of blue here, and then you get a warm and green here, and then a greens here. I'm not 100% sure if maybe there was a kind of really strong warm light and the squirrel was in a shadow, so that was creating this blue. It's just kind of interesting combination. From the setting, I don't think there's anything wrong. I think 125th should be enough for an animal like this to stay sharp. F4 obviously creating the nice depth. 100 ISO is always good choice. Now this one, let's have a look at the settings. So this one was with 150 to 600 millimeter lens, ISO 100, f5.6, 1/200th of a second, and actually technically, and even already looking at it, this one is very cool. Great sharpness on the animal, beautiful blur in the background, however blur enough so you can still see the mountains, which I think is really cool. There is a sharpness at this part and then a little bit of blur on this foreground. So storytelling wise, this was well handled and well put together by keeping it very natural. So the color is actually very good here. Now staying with the composition, this is super storytelling. Even if I wouldn't have known the story, obviously the animal is clearly looking somewhere. The crop, the panoramatic crop really work here and it's excellent. Only thing what you could do if you would want to, you could have crop it from this side a little bit and placing more the animal on this side, but it doesn't need that really. I think still like this, it looks super cool and it's very well done. Now on this one, when it comes to composition, just a little bit, there is plenty space in front of her, but I think her, the animal, but I think in order to make it work better, you need to get rid of some of the space behind. So that way you get maybe something like this, which makes it a little bit more stronger and a little bit more powerful. If you want to stick with your 16:9, you could, by maybe doing just something like this, and that way you kind of putting her eye again in this third, and you get something like this, and it's quite nice and powerful, I think. So this is where I would take it when it comes to composition. You get your main focal point, your main subject, again storytelling, super cool. Now talking about post-processing on this one, it's the blue which kind of takes away a little bit of the magic. I think everything else works, the green, the browns, it's quite nice. It's just the blue. So I wonder if we could just use a little bit of brush, maybe make it a little bigger and add a little bit of warmth and just remove a little bit of it. So when we do something like this, just to make it a little bit more natural, also on her a little bit at this area. And something like this. So now when we get rid of this blue, we get this more natural look, I think. Now the next thing I would do, I would just remove a little bit of the saturation altogether and add it back by vibrance. So that's about it. Let's quickly look at the white balance. Yeah, maybe not as warm, not as green. No, I think the white balance was actually good. I don't think we need to do anything there. This is it. After that, just maybe a little more vignette. Again, one more mask on the foreground here to kind of really bring the attention towards him. And maybe this as well. And there we have it. On this one, I would leave it like this. Push a little bit touch of contrast. So maybe like this, and that's about it, Laurie. Beautiful, beautiful image. Both of them completely different. This one really kind of, how you say, very simple, but the simplicity really worked here, just a bit of a stone, contrast color of the animal, and then the background. So all in all, Laurie, thank you so much for sharing the photos with you. Thank you for sharing the story with us, and take care, stay safe, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of your images in the near future. Now we're going to see Lieve. Lieve, we have two pictures from you. Two beautiful birds, and one more time, congratulations on joining us for the competition, for the travel quiz. It was really joy to see how you got into it, and I was really happy to see you winning the travel presets. But now we're looking at these two images. And let's look at the editing here, and let's look at the camera details. So are you using the same camera? Yeah, both of them Nikon D300, both of them with the Tamron 18-270. So nice long lens. And now from the camera setting on this one, ISO 400, 240 millimeters, so almost towards the max. F14, 1/800 of a second. So ISO 400 is just as a suggestion, always goes back to the same. As much as you can, try to go for 100. I'm not really sure what was the light condition. However, looking at the settings, I think you could have gone a little bit slower. I know the birds are moving fast, but 1/800 of a second, maybe you could have gone a little bit lower, and that will allow you to bring down the ISO. The problem is that the higher the ISO, you start to lose the details and introducing noise and so on. So that would be my only thing. Otherwise, the bird is sharp. It's in a nice posture. The background is very nice with this blur. So it all works together. These are just some suggestions. Now on this one, again, the ISO 400 here, f11, 1/500 of a second. So 300 of the second slower than this one, and it's still nice and sharp. Lovely sharp image with lots of details. Obviously, a little bit of the noise. You can see it on these kind of darker areas and a little bit on the bird, but still beautiful, beautiful capture. Now, talking about composition, I quite like it. The center like this, I think it works. I mean, maybe a little bit closer from the top, and just making sure it's in center, and that's about it. I would leave it on this one. Now on this one, let's see, just maybe a little bit tighter. Oh no, I'm not sure. Maybe just something a little bit like this. There is a little bit of some kind of, I think you maybe have a little bit of sensor dust here, which can be really easily removed by using this tool here. And that's it, gone. So just kind of have a look at your camera and see if you're getting this blur here. And that's about it. I like the space in front of the animal. I like how the animal is moving and eating the berry. I think the subject is clear. It's a lovely storytelling capture. All in all, lovely picture. Now, when it comes to post-processing, this one really doesn't need much. Maybe a little bit of a vignette to add attention to the animal. You could do a little bit of masking with a linear gradient from the bottom. Just here, making sure that you close the picture a little bit. And that's about it. Now, on this one, definitely vignette. To bring more attention to the animal in the center, you could use a brush and add a little bit of highlights to the part where he gets the sun. So something like this, and leave it from there. Both beautiful captures, well done. My main thing I would suggest to you is to keep an eye on the ISO and see how you could lower it, so then you avoid the noise, increase the sharpness and the level of details. Lieve, thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure to review your images. Please make sure you send us more in the near future. Two more wildlife photographers, Rene and Stevie. So Rene, 2 images from you. So let's jump straight to it and let's see what we have here. Both of them, same camera, same lenses. So Olympus M1 Mark III, Olympus 100 to 400 lenses. Now on this one, ISO 6400, f9, 1/125th of a second. Well, I'm sure, Rene, you're gonna know what I want to say to start with, and it's really visible from the image, is the ISO. 6400 is super, super high, and that's why you're getting this softness and probably a fair bit of noise as well. If I would have moved in, maybe you try to remove some of it in post-processing, well done, but you can really see on the edges in these parts, and it's almost like it's watercolor painted rather than captured with the camera. And I don't know what the condition were. Obviously, when you go for so high, I'm assuming it was darker. However, sometimes we just, there's a situation we just can't capture because the conditions are not so well. And I think this is one of them, because really f9 isn't the end of the world. 1/125th of a second is probably even too slow for the bird. You probably should have gone a little bit faster, but 6400 is a lot, and it's a bit difficult to remove for any camera or any gear. So that's about where I would leave it. Also, it seems that there is more details in the background than on the actual bird, and the bird, even on the face and everything, is quite blurry. On this one, ISO 200, which is of course much more manageable, f9, 1/800th of a second. So what I like here is that there is a sharpness in the kind of center, and there is a little bit of movement on the animal. However, when you zoom in, you see again lots of noise in these parts, and definitely something you really need to work on to see how you can change the setting on your camera to get less and less noise. Other than that, yeah, sharpness on the wall again. Not the craziest sky I've seen ever, but technically that's about where I would leave it. Now, composition wise, it is interesting capture. Obviously, beautiful bird. There's no question about it. The movement is really cool. Obviously, the colors suggest a nice contrast between the colors and the background. This adds us a little bit of an element. So all in all, it's nice, but more as a part of a series. If you would, let's say, have a 2-3 pictures, I think it would work a little bit nicer. You kind of look at it and you're not 100% sure what you're looking at, but still very cool. On this one, there isn't anything wrong with the composition other than the fact that it could have a little bit more space around him. I think the one thing you really need to start by looking at this picture is to understand how you can work a bit more with the ISO. Now, talking about post-processing, this one I'm going to leave. I'm not going to say much. I think it's to start with removing some of the noise. On this one, let's just quickly look how it would look in black and white. Black and white is also very cool on this one, I have to say. When you would really push the contrast and maybe in effects, add a little vignette, not crazy, just a little, push the clarity and push the texture, you get something a little bit more powerful for me than the kind of colors which are a little bit washed out and less contrasted. Like this, you get a pure contrast between the background and the bird, and I think it looks very, very cool. Rene, anyway, thank you very much for sending it over. It was a pleasure to see your pictures. A little bit to do, but still, thank you and take care. Moving on to the final photographer of this week, we have a picture from Stevie. Stevie, duck photos. Now, this one is a little bit softer, but with some movement. And this one, I'm loving the level of details on this one. It's incredible. The drops falling, the level of details on the feather is absolutely beautiful. So let's have a look. Camera details. Oh, no camera details on neither one. That's a shame, because that's really something what give me a hand to give you feedback on what you're doing, how you're capturing your image. Either way, let's have a look at this one. Lots of details again, as I say, all the way into the eye. The dropping water, even with the drop, is very, very cool, and it's beautiful, beautiful capture with lots of depth, blur at the back, which isn't as contrasty as you would wish. However, the fact that you can see through the water and everything is just amazing, really cool. On this one, I think, I don't know if you added yourself a little bit of dreaminess, softness to it, or if it came like that. However, I think it would have deserved a little bit of sharpness, especially when you put the two pictures next to each other. Of course, again, lots of details from drops and the see-through water and everything. However, between the two of them, I think this one is a bit more powerful, a bit more natural. Now, when we talk about composition, the message is clear. Again, I would imagine these pictures as a part of series of 4 or 5 images. So maybe more distance feature, more crop on the head and so on. I think together that would work really well. All in all, I still think they are great. This one, again, very clear capture, very clear subject, clear storytelling, and with the drops and everything, really kind of like a National Geographic capture. So well done. And post-processing, this one is very natural, not much to add. This one, I would just keep an eye on the dreaminess and on the overall kind of overexposure. It's almost like a bright edit. So I think if you're capturing something like this, I think keep it natural and sharp, and it will come out a little bit better. All in all, Stevie, thank you so much for sending us your photos. It was a pleasure to review them. If you have more, make sure you send them to us in the near future, and take care and stay safe until next time. And the same goes for all of you folks. If you want to join us already for the next episode, all you need to do is to head to our website, cleverphotographer.com/review, and that's where you can find all the links and upcoming dates together with the information on how you can join us already for the next episode of the Clever Photographers Photography Review Show. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining me this week. Take care, stay safe, and I can't wait to see you again next week.